chairs there. Oh yeah, to do this.
Review and revise proposed bylaws. Don't want to get into a long session today. What do you think about just moving that to a workshop in a couple weeks from now? Or whatever anybody wants.
Hi. Good.
I'm alive.
Congratulations. What is first place win? The medal? Oh, well then you're gonna pay for dinner. Oh, it's your daughter. What a fun thing for you and Jody to do.
That's what, I just want to make sure.
Well, I think that should be some more colorful questions than I do.
You're lucky you got one, okay? They just, they throw them all away.
Today's National University Year.
I don't care what you do. If you don't,
You don't want to start too early, exclude somebody.
I can see it for a while, but I think I got there.
They don't wait. As my sister would say, does Stan feel okay? Sorry? Does Stan feel okay this morning? He looks a little pale. Okay. She didn't look pale. No, it's just been okay.
Darren has volunteered to Countdown.
Yeah, it's getting close.
Okay. About 9:30?
Yep.
Okay, the meeting is now called to order. It's 9:30 a.m. And we do have a quorum with all 5 directors present. And so at this time, I'd like to call, excuse me, on a volunteer, Ann Barron, to give us the invocation.
Father, we come to you through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Thank you for this beautiful spot on the earth which our members enjoy. Pour out wisdom and compassion upon our new board of directors and our members as they try to make the fort a happier and better place for us all. Father, help each of us to strive to live by the golden rule. Love thy neighbor as thyself. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 I'll do the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the
Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas,
one state, under God, one and indivisible.
As we move to the agenda, the first item will be approval of the minutes of the March 17th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion that we approve these minutes.
There's a couple of typos in there.
There's a couple of typos, I've got
Those
them
need to be
down.
I second.
We have a motion to approve and a second and a comment to point out a couple of typos.
On executive officer down here, it says RV park, pay you go. I think that's supposed to be pay as you go.
That's what I got.
Okay,
And then over on the letter of credit, it gives the amount of, for the number 388, but it didn't give an amount for the 407.
the 407, was that the
I
$7,000?
have no clue. It
Yes,
didn't give an amount.
Yes,
Yes, it is.
that's,
I think that needs to be in the minutes.
Yeah, I think it should.
okay, that remains unchanged at $7,000.
That's all I had.
Any further corrections?
That's all I could find.
All those in favor? Minutes stand approved with the corrections as noted.
Whoops, I just seen another one. My name is Debbies with no apostrophe in it.
Okay.
I'm not Debbie's.
Well, I think we're operating under a relaxed, informal version of Robert's Rules of Order. We can make the correction on Debbie's name. That is noted. Yeah, I have a couple of brief announcements I'd like to start the meeting out with. First of all, welcome all of you. It's great to see you. And I'd like to begin by introducing the board, seeing this is a new board starting its first full year of term after being elected. Also included on my right, as most of you know, Richard Lawrence, our Executive Officer, Monique Jensen, our Executive Secretary and Human Resources Manager. And then we begin with the board, Marie Perkins, the new Board Secretary. Maria, okay. Maria Perkins, the new Board Secretary. Bill Herman, probably most of you know, our Vice President. Myself, Dan Sullivan, as your President. Deborah Isaacs, Treasurer. And John Hope, Director. With that, you may have noticed that our agenda is a bit different. We're going to involve the members by inviting them to make comments before we do the action items. It seems that discussion at the end is kind of after the fact, after we've made all the decisions and voted. So we'd like to get the input from members before we make decisions and vote. But it's important, and I know everyone is probably well aware of this, but this is a Board of Directors meeting to conduct the business and affairs of the association. It is not a town hall meeting, and it's not a members meeting. And so in the interest of making these meetings time efficient, we will ask members that want to make comments on any of the action items to come forward at that point, state their position and reasons for it, and then let the next member come up. There will be no debate or discussion. The debate and discussion will take place when the board then takes up the items afterwards, but they'll be aware of what the members want and what their input is. So we're going to try that. This format may be adjusted and changed as we move forward. Other board members may have other ideas or want to make changes, and we'll certainly entertain that and go forward. We want to work as a team of 5 board members together, and our executive officer, our executive secretary, and the members as the force that drives us and puts us here to do their business. With that, I would also like to make a few comments to all of our directors, myself included. I would encourage all of us to become as familiar as possible with all our governing documents, the Articles of Incorporation, the Declaration of Protective Restrictions, the bylaws, and the rules and regulations. And they do have priority in that order. Texas law, of course, comes before that. What we deal with mainly is Property Code 209 and from time to time, the Business Organization Code, Chapter 22, which also trumps the property code. Beyond that, of course, you have federal laws which have to do with a number of things: discrimination, handicap, accessibility, all that type of thing. So if we can all become a little more familiar with that, that's great. I would also ask that we all recognize the chain of command, so to speak. As directors, our authority is vested in us as a board, as a unit, not as necessarily as individuals. We as directors cannot go out and supervise and order employees around. That would be a real treat for an employee to have 5 bosses from here, plus their regular bosses and the rest. We need to recognize the chain of command, and that is, if we have something we want done, we can submit a work order like anyone else, or we can go to Richard and take it to him. If we have a member complaining that has a problem, or one problem that we ourselves observe, we can also take that to Richard, and then he can deal with his department managers and employees. So I'd ask all of us to please recognize and honor that. That concludes what I have to say, and you won't have to go through listening to all this again. It's a one-time shot. Thank you. At this point, we would ask any members that would like to comment on the upcoming action items to step forward and give us your input. Is there anyone that, is this our moment of silence now? All right, well, hearing no one, then we can move forward.
Oh, the lady right here is Lisa.
Oh, welcome. Yep.
I was hoping somebody else would say.
Yeah, please come up to the microphone.
I just had
If
a
you,
question.
if you share your name with us.
Lisa Vale.
Thank you, Lisa.
I just had a question about the first item, the repeal of the bylaws.
The question.
I just didn't understand. We went through a whole process for the year to create them, and why are we repealing them?
Well, I'll address that.
Okay.
The version that was passed was flawed. There are contradictions within that version where it says one thing here, you can do this, and over here it says, no, you can't do this. That needs to be corrected. There may be a few housekeeping things in the document that need to be corrected. And there's also, due to the wording or more appropriate lack of complete wording and explanation, there's points in the document that leave the association vulnerable to monetary unpleasantness. And so that needs to be addressed by the board of directors. Those things straightened out. I don't think there's a lot, but a few things need to be straightened out and then repassed and recorded. And so the cleanest way to do that is to repeal this set, go through, clean it up, and then do a new one. Anyone else? All right, do I have a motion to repeal the bylaws passed on March 17th?
I'll make a motion.
I second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion wanted by the board? All those in favor?
Abstain.
One abstention, 4 in favor. As a matter of note, what I didn't mention, operating under the relaxed informal rules of the Roberts Orders, I, as a president, am not confined to only vote to break ties. I can vote on any issues under those circumstances. And in fact, I can even make motions, which I'll try to refrain from doing. So, all right, moving on to the next item. There's been a request to donate and have installed a wrought iron bench on the creek side of Pecan Road. near the entrance to the pro shop by the bridge that goes across there, this side of it. And this is a memorial bench in honor of Bob and Viva Walker. The bench is paid for by the people donating it. The installation would be done, as has been past practice, by the Fort, with the donors paying for any materials necessary to accomplish that. So there's no cost beyond some time from a couple of maintenance men to install the bench. And if I can please offer my apologies to the board, the information that you got could have been a little more complete. I made a terrible mistake and assumed everybody knew what it was about. The color also will be black. I think the picture shows it as blue.
Blue, yeah.
Yeah, it will be black like all the other wrought iron benches around. So can I solicit a motion to approve that?
I'll make a motion that we approve it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Exactly where is that gonna be located? I know kind of,
Okay, well, Pecan Road, where it intersects the entrance
okay.
before the bridge going to the pro shop.
Is it by that memorial plaque that's already there, or?
Well, in the general vicinity, but it won't, you know, the exact location within a couple feet here or there can be worked out between Philip and his crew and the donors. But it'll be on the creek side, and I thought the way to handle would be to have the people donating the bench work through Philip. Richard, is that all right?
Yes.
To arrange the installation of the bench. I kind of thought they'll probably want it facing the creek, but maybe not. Maybe they want to watch the golfers tee off on 10. I don't know.
Well, I was just concerned that it doesn't get too close to the road, because when you have to pull over going into the gate there.
That's a good
My issue.
good point, and we'll ask them to keep that in mind when they do it.
I have
Thank
a
you.
question. Who decides where it will be oriented or all that? Is it
Well, the donor
decide?
requests the location and the exact, I mean, we don't have a surveyor come out. We have between Philip and the donor, they will work out where to put it.
Okay, so then do they erect like a concrete pad to put it on?
That is generally what is done in order to facilitate maintenance of the lawn and grass. But the donors will be paying them for the materials.
Oh,
Okay. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Right, the next item is to accept or reject the resignation of Maria Perkins from the airport. Did I do it right?
you did, yes.
Thank you. I'm Irish, so you gotta give me a little leeway.
You'll get a little.
I make a motion that we accept her resignation off of the airport committee.
I'll second that.
All in favor? As board secretary, I think you can just keep the letter,
Oh, I can, okay, well, it
or
also
you
has,
probably want to give, make sure Monique gets a copy.
it also has my nomination for the next,
Okay. For anyone that's unfamiliar, it's necessary for a board member to resign from any committees they're on, as they cannot serve on the board and the committee. Okay, the next item is to appoint a new member to the airport committee, which would be the replacement for Maria. And do you have,
I do have the recommendation. Should I read
okay,
it?
can you give us?
Yes. I in my resignation letter, I included who I nominate. To fill the airport committee vacancy, I hereby nominate Brent Hollingsworth. He's an experienced aviator and member in good standing. He has been a key member of the airport and was instrumental in the planning and execution of the airport open houses, as well as maintenance of the airfield. His expertise will be of great value to the committee. So, Brent Hollingsworth.
Okay, I didn't catch the name.
Brent Hollingsworth.
Brent Collingsworth?
Hollingsworth.
Oh, Hollingsworth.
Paragraph.
And he lives here.
I got it. Thank you, Maria, nicely done. Do we have a motion to appoint Brent, or is there, then we can have any questions or discussion? Sure.
I make a motion that we nominate, or appoint, excuse me, Brent Hollingsworth to the airport committee.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, questions?
So he lives here on the fort?
He does, yes.
Does he have an airplane?
He does, yes.
Okay.
He's familiar, he's been helping you with this and,
Yes, he's been part of the airport pretty much since we were an airport advisory committee. So he's grown with the committee and he's grown with the airfield. And he spent most of Saturday with all of us out maintaining the airfield, as we do very often. So
so he's
yes,
very familiar with it.
he's very familiar.
Okay.
He was voluntold to participate in the maintenance, but yes, he volunteered to be part of the committee. Well, and as a matter of fact, all of the pilots had a pilot meeting, and we all talked about the right person who would be ready to fulfill that position in the committee, and Brent was chosen unanimously.
Okay, with no further discussion, do we have a vote to approve? All those in favor? It's approved unanimously. The next item is for temporary modification for rules and regulations. And this is prompted by a problem, and I'm just going to briefly describe the problem, and then if I may, I'll call on our executive officer for his input or further clarification. We have a person that has had some problems with the law and some problems on the fort. They are not a member of the association, and they have been banned some time ago from entering the fort. Is that correct? Correct. The situation coming up now is that an individual that's a friend of this person is attempting to effect entrance onto the fort for this person by presenting him as a guest, as his guest, as a member's guest. And so we have before us a revision or an addition to be done at least temporarily to deal with this situation, proposed by the our administration to be added to the rules and regulations. Richard, would you mind going through those, or would you prefer I do it?
I'm happy to do it, that's fine, if you like. Yes, you did give an accurate assessment of the problem. And in conference with the county attorney, we were advised that we needed to have something in writing that actually gives the management authority to have someone removed who is not a member. And so, would you like me to read these?
Probably be a good idea.
Okay, it's actually a two-step process here. In the first step, with respect to section number 2 of the rules and regulations of the 2006 edition, we're adding a subsection F, which says that management may at any time and for any reason refuse entry onto the Fort Spring Association premises to any person who is not a member of the FCSA. And management may at any time for any reason cause a person who is not a member of the FCSA to be removed from the FCSA premises by lawful authorities. Now, on that point, let me remind you that our security personnel have the authority to observe and report. They cannot stop an individual, they cannot, if the person buzzes through the gate, for example, they can't run them down, pull them to the side, or anything of that nature. But we can call and we can report, and so we report to lawful authorities. A member in good standing may not register a guest who, as a guest, any person who has been refused entry onto the FCSA premises or who has been removed from the premises under this section. A member in good standing may appeal the FCSA to the FCSA Board of Directors management's decision that refuses entry onto or causes removal from the FCSA premises a person who is not a member. What I wanted to do is to give an appeal process. Management would make the initial decision, but there's always has to be an appeal process. Secondly, with respect to member responsibilities, we have modified that subsection B. Already it reads, the member is responsible for the conduct of his or her immediate family, guests, or renters, if applicable, and their compliance with these rules and regulations. In other words, the member is responsible for the people that they bring onto the fort. I'm striking, as a recommendation to the board, striking bad conduct of a member or his immediate or her immediate family, guests, or renters may result in the loss of some or all privileges at the discretion of the Board of Directors. Well, that ties the hands of the security personnel who are trying to manage these things. If someone is misbehaving, we have to go to the board for that to be dealt with. It can't be dealt with immediately. So we're simply reading into this. I'm recommending that it read, a member immediately suspends his or her privileges of membership. It's the member who suspends their privileges upon violation of these rules and regulations, either by his or her own action or the action of his or her family, guest, or renter. So in that clause, it is the member who immediately suspends their own privileges upon violation. Then it reads, management may reinstate the member's privileges on or before the 30th day following suspension. In other words, once they have suspended their membership privileges, we may reinstate them if we do so within the first 30 days. Otherwise, it goes to the board, and it reads, the Board of Directors may at its discretion reinstate the member's privileges or impose a longer period of suspension. And then I recommend that we strike the following sentence, that a member who is the parent, legal guardian, or person with legal responsibility for the safety and welfare of a child under 18 years of age, and the child is found in repeated violation of these rules and regulations, has failed to supervise the minor and may have the privileges of membership suspended. That seems to me to be redundant and unnecessary. Again, the member is immediately suspends his or her own privileges if they do not supervise their own children, guests, etc. And I'm asking only for temporary, because I think that the board is going to want to meticulously revise these rules and regulations which are antiquated, many of which no longer apply, many of which cannot be enforced. We need a lot of work on these. But this gives us some immediate authority as we go into the swim park season, into the summer months, when very often our youth have a tendency to get rambunctious.
This offers a solution to our immediate problem also.
Yes, that's all. And you could even set a date, for example, the end of August, when this would expire automatically. But then that puts the pressure to get the rules and regulations revised.
Okay, so you're suggesting we put an automatic?
I think that'd be a prudent thing to do, an automatic expiration date.
Okay. All right, well, if we could have a motion put on the table to approve this and second it, then that'll open it up for discussion, questions and amendments, whatever.
I make a motion that we install and still put in effect the temporary modification of the rules and regulations.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Now it's open for discussion.
I have some questions. So when you're saying that a member, can you guys hear this? When you're saying that a member is gonna suspend their own membership, are you saying that people currently are at a point where we can enforce knowing who is a member and who's not gonna be a member with their own privileges? Does this question make sense?
I'm not sure I follow it.
Well, so I'll repeat it in a different way. So are you saying that we have an accurate list of all the members of this fort, and it is a very accurately maintained list to where you can say, well, Maria Perkins let her kid do something terrible in the pool, so now she's taking away her rights, and you've got something accurate that reflects that, oh, I have no membership privileges, and that's translated to the whole fort. Because I don't think there's an accurate membership list to be able to enforce this.
I would disagree. I think that we have an accurate membership list, I do think so. And then if by chance there is some error, it would be quickly discovered.
Are we sure about that? I'm just asking the question, because it doesn't.
I'm sure of that.
Because this seems like, while this is very reasonable to tell a member, hey, if your guests can't behave, you don't have your privileges. But with so many people and so many people bringing guests, how is that enforceable?
If you're not a member, then I'm having difficulty understanding. If you are a member, then I believe we will have your name in the system. If you're not a member, then this particular clause doesn't even apply.
But we have non-members still coming into the fort, and they aren't always vetted. And I know that because some people from the base come visit me, and they just show up at my door. So I'm getting at is, how are you going to enforce this? Because if we don't know who's coming into the fort completely, and no ding on security, because they do their best, but you're always going to have those people that go right through that lane for members,
Right.
because they've come here before, whether they're here to golf or they're here to visit a person that they've come to visit before. I just feel like, yes, we need to do something, and yes, the rules and regulations heavily need to be changed. But I think that by putting this here, you're kind of saying we are a babysitter, and we know that we can babysit a member because we know when we're going to take away their privileges. And then on the flip side of that, I'm still supposed to pay for my membership if I'm suspended from my membership. Or am I not going to be paying for my membership if I am suspended from my membership?
Your membership's not suspended, your privileges.
Right, but you pay for your privileges.
But then you lose the privileges.
So then do I have to
Not the
pay for
membership.
it?
The only way I know to do is to try to simplify this if I can.
Yeah.
And that is, if one of your guests comes onto the fort, and if that guest is in violation of rules, regulations, etc., that guest then may be asked to leave, right? Or even refused entry,
Okay.
right? If the person then violates rules and regulations, that person may be asked to leave or be caused to leave by lawful authority. Okay?
Okay.
In other words, they show up at your door and you didn't expect them, you don't want them at your door, we can now do something about it.
Call it cops. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes, and have them removed, if it's in the rules and regulations. That's why I'm asking it to be placed there. So that person goes through the gate, right? It's not hard to do, we all know that, because there's no drop-down gate to prevent them from doing that. So they buzz through, and now they come to your door and you want them removed. At this moment, I don't think we have the authority to do that. if we put this into the rules and regulations, we do have the authority to ask them to be removed from the premises because at that point, they're trespassing,
Okay,
okay?
so now take this to the park. How does that translate to the park?
Same thing. Excuse me. Same thing. A person comes onto the four premises, they're enjoying the park facilities, they're misbehaving now, and so we approach them. We determine whether or not they are a member. If they are not a member, then they may be asked to leave or be caused to leave. Okay? If they are a member and they're misbehaving, after warning, I would say, that they have suspended their own privileges at that moment. And we can ask them to leave the facility of the swim park because only members in good standing may use the facilities.
Okay.
Okay? And so, this gives us the authority to do that.
Now what about my guest? So let's say I have a guest.
You have a guest?
I'm not with said guest, but said guest
Well, you
is
should
at-
be with said guest, but go ahead.
What if I'm not? But that guest is now doing something at the pool. So if my membership privileges are suspended, am I no longer paying for my membership, or am I just getting a detention letter saying I am not going to be?
You will
a member
continue to
against
pay
me?
for your membership, right?
Mhm.
Because we're not talking about suspending membership, we're talking about suspending privileges, which you have done by your own act.
Okay.
And yes, you will continue to pay your membership assessments.
Okay. Now, how do you know that that guest is actually my guest? When that person rolls into the front gate. When that person rolls, this is a serious question. Like, how do you know?
Well, the question seems to be getting redundant, Maria, to me. Maybe I'm not hearing it well.
Well, maybe, I mean, I'm sorry to be redundant, but I'm just asking, how are you gonna know that that's my guest?
My guess is, my guess is, one of two things will happen. Either they will say, I'm the guest of Maria Perkins, right? Or they'll say, I'm nobody's guest, okay? If they say I'm nobody's guest, they get removed immediately anyway. If they say I'm the member, I'm the guest of this member, they still get removed, and now we have a bone to pick with you.
And then if the person, so the person's not documented when they go into the gate as a guest. Is that what I'm understanding?
They're supposed to be. Are they always? No, sometimes they come under the fence.
And my last question is, are there rules that are gonna be posted at, like, say, the pool or another open facility that is going to tell someone, if these are the conducts that are going to be warranting someone else to get in trouble, or is this just gonna be the rule? Hey, we can decide this is bad behavior and that's it.
2 points to be made. The first point is that, yes, in fact, we have a work order to the printing company to print up these new signs. Because they look, for one, they look terrible. And we're gonna be posting new signs, and we're just waiting for that to be done. We've already ordered them. The second point is, not every rule has to be posted.
Right, but if you're gonna hold someone responsible to behavior of some sort, you gotta say, you cannot do this.
We're saying it
this.
here. And if we're saying it here, then the member knows it, or they should know it.
Well, there's nothing here that says what this bad behavior is, so.
No, we would never be
Right,
able,
we've already
we
decided those are not
we would never be able to list every bad behavior.
The point being is that when you became a member, you got a rules, and I understand what you're saying, it's gotta be revised.
Yeah.
But you got a rules and regulations, so you are aware of what the rules and regulations are because they're written here.
Well, right, it's assumed you read them, but.
Well, that's not my problem, that's your problem.
Yeah, it's the member's problem for not reading it, but you're asking for temporary revision to this. So what I'm saying, from a parent standpoint, if I tell my kid, hey, or member, or whoever, hey, if you have bad behavior, you're gonna possibly lose your privileges. Well, what is bad behavior? So that's all I'm saying. Like, if you're not defining it, this leaves it open-ended and someone can walk in.
There will indeed be a list of rules and regulations, but it will not cover everything. If a person is somehow misbehaving such that it would involve security personnel, they're gonna be asked to leave, and the members' privileges will be suspended. Why? Because they suspended them by not supervising the child, and not supervising the guest. So, you need to understand what we encounter every summer. and that is we have children, teenagers, youth, who terribly misbehave, throwing chunks of concrete into the pool, bicycles into the pool, getting down into the spillway, which is extremely dangerous. We had one of our lifeguards terribly injured that way last year. Many things happen that we can't list every single one of them. The parent is not there. So the child is asked to leave and is suspended from the park. Then we get a call or they come in saying, not my child. My child's an angel. You must be listed. Okay. And so you can't suspend my privileges. Well, my response I would like to give is, no, I can't. You did when you did not supervise your child. That's the approach I'd like to take.
All right, Maria, I'm going to offer someone else an opportunity. And possibly if you still have more concerns than that, you could have them put on the agenda with proposed solutions at another meeting. Does anyone else?
Yes, I would. During the renters workshops that we done, it was surprising to me how many members did not know that they were responsible for their guest here. It may be a communication thing, maybe once a month or twice a month we send out something in the dispatch on certain rules, just for communication, update, so everybody gets the same information. But I was really surprised how many people did not know they were responsible for their renters on this floor during those meetings. But it's always been that way.
Well, yeah, it's in the rules.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are we ready to call the question?
I am.
Okay, the question has been called. All those in favor of adopting, did we put a automatic expansion date
No,
on
that
there?
was not a part of the motion.
That'll be separate? Well, let's include it in the motion that I would say these temporary changes, I would suggest end September 30th, 2018, which take us through the summer swimming season. How the rest of you feel about that?
I can live with that.
Yeah.
You can live with it? Okay, so we will, who made the motion to begin with?
Herman.
You accept that as a friendly amendment,
What was the date?
September 30th?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and who seconded it?
I did.
You accept
I
it?
accept it.
All right, it's accepted as a friendly amendment that this temporary order will expire September 30th, 2018. All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you very much.
And Mr. President, we will publicize this rule and regulation for the summertime so that everyone knows what's at play.
I will depend on you. We all will. I shouldn't say I, we're a team. That takes care of our action items. Before we move on to the old and unfinished business, please excuse me, but I did forget a couple of things under announcements. I was really trying my best to keep it brief. But any member can request something be put on the agenda by contacting any director and requesting an issue or an item of concern. Then the board will decide whether it's appropriate or not to put on the agenda. And of course, all the directors, as usual and as always, can have any item they wish put on the agenda. With that in mind, there's going to be some changes on deadlines. Right now, we're probably going to be looking very soon at considering changing the day of the board meeting at the request of one or more of our directors. And so that'll be taken under consideration. But in the meantime, the next meeting is April 21st, and that's already been announced, so that will not change. Based on that date, the deadline for providing any items, issues you want on the agenda will be 5 p.m. on Thursday, April 12th. And the reason for that is that we are no longer going to be scrambling at 8:59 Wednesday morning trying to get a notice out 72 hours before the meeting, and then having packages coming out incomplete to the directors late Wednesday evening. We're going to get those notices out when at all possible on Tuesday, sometime during the day Tuesday, which will give us plenty of time. If there's a little glitch that comes up with computers or anything like that, we'll have an opportunity to correct that and still meet the 72-hour requirement. And directors will be able to get their packages, in most cases, sometime Tuesday to give them adequate time, because they may have another life and aren't able to just drop everything and review everything in there. So we need that time. 5 p.m. Thursday gives us basically Friday and Monday and part of Tuesday to put it all together, gather all the information that's needed so it can be more complete in the future, and get that done. So I wanted to let everyone know that, including all of my fellow directors. Okay, the next item under old and unfinished business is to review and revise the proposed bylaws. Now, I don't think that's something that we want to try to complete today. As I see it, it'll be up to the rest of the board, obviously. We can do several things. We can start the process by going through the early pages, which I would hope would not be real time consuming, as they've been hashed over and over and over again, and then suspend our work for the day and take the balance up at another time. Or we can move the whole question to a workshop meeting in the very near future, or we can do some of both. So I would ask for input from all my fellow directors on what they think, what they'd like to do.
I think I'd like to see it in a workshop pretty early, and let's get rid of them. I mean, let's get them filed. The reason can I go ahead and speak?
Sure.
There were too many things that needed to be corrected and done when they passed the bylaws. We asked for it to stop that so somebody could look at them before they got filed. Wanted to save y'all money instead of filing them and then coming back, the board recalling to have them relooked at and having to file again. So that was the reason they were not gone ahead and filed at the courthouse. We just want to make sure everything is right. We don't want to spend your money twice. And that was the purpose of this. So I think a workshop, go through, a lot of it is correct. There's some things in here that nobody ever got to look at. And that was the purpose of doing this. So I say let's do a workshop.
I agree with that.
Okay, we seem to have agreement. Do we have a consensus here? John and Bill?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, well
Then
then,
I'd like to see it happen quick,
That's what I said.
tomorrow, the next day,
yesterday?
yesterday.
Before the board meeting.
Yeah, time before the board meeting. Let's don't drag it out.
No.
Well, it seems to me that the workshop, all we need to do at the workshop would bring whatever the problems are.
Exactly.
And talk about
Exactly.
that only, not that, page 1 through 20, let's say is good, we don't have to talk about it.
No, we can just zip
We
right
just
through
sit
it.
to and go to where those problems are, and then that's all we need to discuss.
Absolutely.
100%.
I got that.
Okay, it happens that this month I have a number of other commitments, but I have a lot of open dates too. So why don't we start off by hearing what some of you would like as a date and time.
How about Wednesday morning?
Which morning?
Wednesday morning, the 11th.
Wednesday.
Give us a whole day to go over it. We've had several days to look at this already.
Right. I hear what you're saying, a whole day. You weren't suggesting the meeting be the whole day, but
No.
that we'd have the
No.
whole day,
Give it a
okay.
whole day to look at it, to come
Thank
up
you.
with your questions,
Yes.
just on that subject, not
Correct.
the whole.
That's all we would be dealing with at
That's
the
right,
workshop.
Exactly.
Um,
I'm not available that day.
Okay, the only,
I'm available the 17th, which is Tuesday next week.
Excuse me,
The 17th, Tuesday next week, I'm available in the morning.
the 17th. I'm also looking at, I believe we have to give a 72-hour notice of that workshop meeting.
Well, the 17th, if you want your board meeting packet out on Tuesday, that won't work to get
No.
on the board meeting.
No. So the 12th, how about the 12th?
Thursdays aren't, in the afternoon, morning's okay.
Morning? Yeah, do it in the morning. Or you ain't gonna run the whole day.
The problem is the 72-hour notice. I'm not sure on a workshop, I really am not positive, but I'm afraid that we do need to give a 72-hour notice. And so, even if we got a notice and an agenda out later today, it would be late Thursday afternoon before we could possibly have the meeting.
Can't you just verbally make a notice right now and then post it afterwards?
Well, the notice requirements require an email notice to be sent out to each member and for it to be posted in a conspicuous spot like the marquee. So I don't think we can get by with, it used to be that the board could have workshop meetings without the notice, but I don't think that is possible anymore. Unless someone knows better, I'm more than open to hearing from them.
What about Friday morning? I have babysitter
Nope.
considerations I have to take into account.
No
too,
Friday.
so,
I'm not even gonna be in town Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Excuse me?
I'm not gonna be in town Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
No. Well, that's not necessary.
Monday, the 16th is good.
Maria wasn't available.
Okay.
Yeah, I have,
Well, why can't we have it on the 7th?
If we do like 10 o'clock in the morning on Monday, I could probably do that.
We can do it at 9 o'clock.
Well, I have a commitment in Del Rio at 7:30 in the morning on
Okay.
Monday.
Oh, I see.
So by the
10
time I
o'clock?
get back
Monday,
here,
10's
10
fine
o'clock
with
would
me.
be.
Monday, 10 o'clock, and that gives you 72 hours between there and the meeting.
Yeah, we have plenty of time to give the notice in. I happen to have a 10 o'clock doctor's appointment, but I can change that. I'll change it. So are we looking at Monday, the 16th?
Monday, the 16th at 10 o'clock. Is that early, too early? You wanna make it 10:30, 11?
I'm up every morning at 5, so 10 is perfect.
Just don't go
But
too
you
late.
gotta go,
Well, by the time I get back, it'll be plenty of time. I'll get back by like 9:15, so it'll give me
Okay.
time to
Okay,
all
get
right,
the
10
baby
o'clock.
off.
10 o'clock on Monday. the
I'll make a motion that we meet at 10 o'clock on the 16th
For a workshop.
for a workshop
Bylaws on
to finalize the bylaws. That's right.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a, Bill, does that work for you?
Sure.
And Maria, you already said it did?
Yes, it does.
All right, all those in favor? And we have a unanimous agreement. So we'll have to, Monique, get together and make sure we get out.
And to confirm, we're coming into this meeting with all of our issues that we have with the bylaws.
Yes, please come prepared, not only issues, but solutions.
That's right.
Right.
Okay. All right, now I need to report on the March 31st, 2018 vote to delay recording the revised bylaws and make it official so they do go into the minutes. On that date, the new board met and voted to delay recording the revised bylaws until they could be reviewed. The vote was unanimous to do so, I believe, and that should be recorded. We were authorized to have that kind of a meeting without a notice under Property Code 209, Section .0051, subsection H, for anyone that would like to look it up. So that it will be entered in the minutes of this meeting that was reported. That's a requirement that we report it. I also have, and have alerted somewhat, we have a member requesting a hearing regarding the suspension of their privileges. That person has requested a delay for that to be moved to sometime in May. So that's something we can deal with at our next meeting as far as how we're going to handle it. I had suggested to him that subject to the board approving it, we would handle it in an executive session on the April 21st meeting, and then he informed me he was going to be gone. It would not be available until after May 1st. He also informed me that he wanted the hearing in front of an open meeting, and that's something that we can decide. You know, he may want that, but we may not. On the other hand, we may split it. We may let him have his hearing at the open meeting, and then we may need to adjourn to make our decision on
Executive session.
in executive session and notify him. And there's, I don't need to get into it now, but there's, you know, as usual, requirements. We have to give him a 10-day notice of the time, date, and place of hearing, and it goes on and on, but we'll deal with that next.
I have a, he also requested that one of the members not be there, and I think that is not possible.
Well, yes, he requested that one of the members of this board recuse themselves from that hearing, but that's up to the member of this board, whether they want to do it or not. It's not up to him.
It's not up to him.
No, he, I believe, could, if he can go forward and maybe have a court order and prove beyond a doubt and, you know, all that kind of foolishness, he could, but otherwise, no, it's up to the person.
I agree.
Okay. Before we confirm the next regular board meeting and adjourn, I would say I appreciate all of you bearing with us in handling this a little different in a new manner. And at the end, it's a little bit clumsy where we have visiting session members and directors. I think what we may need to do, and the board may decide in the future here, to have from time to time a town hall meeting. In the meantime, as I say, it was a little clumsy here, we're saying visiting session, so I'm going to invite anybody and any directors that care to stay behind and kind of get to know each other and listen and hear any concerns that you may have. And in the future, maybe we can have these sessions at the end be like a very many short-term or town hall meeting. But in the meantime, Deborah Isaacs would like to make some comments regarding our suggestion box.
As a lot of you know, I had a Elect Debbie Isaacs page on Facebook. I've got a lot of comments, a lot of people that's willing to volunteer. One of the things they were worried about is their concerns and stuff wasn't getting to the board members. I want to propose that the suggestion box up in the front office, anybody that's got a concern, if it's with board, if it's with office, if it's whatever, put your concerns. If there's a certain project you want to look at or anything on the fort, put your suggestions in that box and a board member will take those out. We will look at them and we will pass them on to the personnel, the office staff. But we want the members' input, we want your concerns, and I think if we do it this way, all the board members are going to hear every concern you members have. And that's just one of the things in trying to be transparent in what we're doing as a board and for the fort. So if y'all got concerns with that, talk to your board members, stay over and talk to somebody, but let's utilize what we have in our members' concerns also.
Thank you, Deb.
May I add something?
Please.
Okay. I have just created a email address for members to submit work orders. It's very simple. Work order at fortclark.com. Send an email to us, and that would prevent you from having to come in and fill out a paper form, etc. However, that's still available to you. If you want to come in and submit a paper form for a work order, that's fine, you can do that too. But if you have access to computer and email, you can email to us a work order. Now, it also means that just because you submit a work order doesn't mean that that's going to be done the next day. We try to prioritize things, we try to get things as we can, and so that doesn't change. Yes, there are perceptions that the board, things don't get to the board, but I can tell you, we earnestly try to get anything and everything to the board, even when it hurts to do so.
Yeah.
So perception is not always truth.
Oh, I know, I realize that very well,
Thank you.
but it's just, we want your confidence in this board is what we want.
Well, y'all are the people that put this board together. So if we don't have y'all's input, then we're not gonna be able to do what y'all want us to do. And that's the bottom line. We're not here to, go ahead.
No, I thought you were through. I'm concerned about people who do not have email, and my headquarters dispatch every now and then goes to clutter instead of coming in. I look for it now, because I know. But somebody talked the other day about reinstituting the bugle box, bugler, was it the bugler? And it seems like for people who don't have email, if those things could get printed and put somewhere where people who don't have email could get their hands on the HQ dispatch.
Thank you, thank you, Mary Frances. I think we're gonna move on and then we'll have a visiting session. Maybe, I don't know how you all would like it, but possibly the visiting session could be just those of us that can will stay here and just come up and visit and bring up those kind of concerns, or would you rather just come up to the microphone one at a time and discuss?
Mr. Sullivan, I did have a question. Was our orientation, are we doing that, or did you already do that when you?
That was just my little tips or requests to you, like the chain of command and
Oh, okay.
and
My definition of
familiarizing
orientation is
ourselves.
a little different then.
Richard has offered, if any board members that would like to have a tour of the facilities on the fort, that we can get together and organize that, like going through the maintenance department and wherever. Okay? Yep. The next regular board meeting will be April 21st, 2018 at 9 a.m. And with that, could I have, and I hesitate because I don't really need it, but could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second it.
All in favor?
Well, you're 1 minute short of an hour.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the meeting is adjourned, it's finished, except for anyone that feels there'll be no more business conducted, but anyone that would like to stay by and visit and discuss issues or anything they like, here we are.
Would you like the video to stay on?
Sorry, Will. What's going on? Does it appear? Tell your kids.
Remember, there are